All right, welcome guys. Today's date is
let's go ahead and
May
jump into
the
the charts here.
29th,
Price support and
2018. Hopefully
resistance,
everyone
trading
had
the
a
highs and the lows
fantastic Memorial Day weekend. Getting back on the charts here. I want to go over the dollar yen because I had posted this on my Facebook page the other day, and I'm not sure how many people caught it, but I want to talk about this because there seems to be some significant changes taking place on some of the yens right now. So let's jump into this. First of all, the first thing I want to do is kind of go over the major trend on this one right here. So this is really what we've been seeing. If you go to the higher time frames, you can see we have been holding this trend line for quite some time, and we have been unable to break through this top right here. Now, if you go back down to the weekly time frame, additionally, we have this trend line. This has been in play for quite some time as well. Now, this is very key that you understand this part right here. Okay, so you've got the bottom down here. You got two tweezers here. You have a wick right here. You have a wick right here. This is the key. If we zoom in here, let's actually go down to the daily time frame for this. You can see we came down, had a very small bounce, just was not able to go very far right here when we came down to this trend line right here. And then here's the key. We broke down below it, and then we retested it right here. This retest and fail confirms this trend line right here, because a lot of people, they don't properly draw trend lines. Now, this one's pretty obvious. Sometimes you may have a wick down to here, or some wicks may extend a little further. And so people may say, well, you know what? The wicks are, let's say the wick is down here. They may try to draw their trend line like this. And that's not accurate. Why is that not accurate? Because the market right here confirmed where the trend line should be at. So anytime you have a trend line and it gets broken, take a very close look at where the market retests. And that's where you should draw your trend line. So having said all that, you do have a nice little trend line right here. So this is going to act as resistance because, once again, we did break this. And then you've got this massive trend line right up here. Now, the thing to keep in mind, we have hit it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The more times we hit it, the less likely it is going to break through. But what you have to keep in mind here is this. Here was a bottom right here. There's a bottom here, a bottom here, a bottom here. We broke it and went lower. So we have brand new sellers coming into the market off of these levels up here. So that makes it increasingly unlikely that we are just going to break through this area right up here. And again, that's where the trend line is right there. This up here is what I refer to as a structure level. If you're unfamiliar with that, please make sure you're checking out the new course, which is out now. If you're a student, that means you have free access to that. All you have to do is request it from me. But so we have this trend line as resistance right up here. We have this trend line as resistance right up here. And then you can see we have the quarter right here. Again, the quarter is a major moving average that acts as resistance. And you can see that is ultimately where the market stopped at. This entire range up here is going to be incredible, and I mean incredible resistance. And that's why we are pushing down. And that's exactly what I showed you on the markup that I posted on my Facebook page. And you can actually scroll through the photos section of my page there. You can actually check that out if you haven't already. But if you go to the higher time frames, again, you always want to confirm the bias on the higher time frames to make sure that they are in agreement. Also, by the way, please take note of this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks in a row with no pullback. How often does this happen? If you look through your history here, you can see that it is very, very rare. So it is absolutely ready for a pullback. So we are at a time count as well up here as we move into the quarter. And again, go to the monthly time frame and let's see what we have here. Actually, we'll zoom back in here. On the monthly time frame, what do we have? Again, there's our trend line. There's our trend line. You can see we had a solid close below the lower band right here. Albeit not a huge one, it's still a solid close. And like I said, we did make a lower low right here. So it's hard to have too much of a bullish bias because we have new sellers coming into this market. But check out what happens here. Because we had the close below the lower band, the upper band now becomes some form of resistance. So you are going to have resistance right up here at the upper band, which is down around 110. And then also the coral was right here as well. And again, the coral is major support and resistance. So you have to watch that area as well. Now here's the key in this. We pushed down, made brand new lows, and then we began to push up. While price is pushing up, the THV, our momentum indicator, continues to drop and is red. This should be turning green as we push up into these levels, but it is not. That signifies major weakness on this on the monthly time frame. So for that reason, it would not surprise me if we actually had more downside to this ultimately right here. And again, the overall trend is definitely down. There's going to be massive resistance up here, so I have a hard time buying this at all. In fact, I'm not looking for any sort of buy on any of the time frames on this. So this is definitely a sell to me. As of right now, we have yet to close below the lower band on the weekly. Once we do, the upper band will be incredible amounts of resistance. And if you look at the daily time frame, you can definitely see that there was a trend line right here. So what I would love to see on this is a break below, a solid close below this, and then a push back up into those regions there. And I may be able to get a nice short trade, and hopefully this will continue to move south here. But I wanted to show you this because I did mention this on my wall, and I want to give you a video and show you exactly why I'm saying what I'm saying. But again, you have incredible amounts of resistance up in this area. Again, you've got this trend line, that trend line. You've got this coral right here, and these two lines right here, again, are the upper band, and they are, in fact, the coral on the monthly time frame as well. So you are dealing with multi-time frame confluences here, and those are the best ones. So you can see the market did stop here at around the, let's see, the high on this was 111.40, and we have dropped all the way down to 108.10. So it's dropped about 330 pips so far. But again, if this trend remains intact, then guess what? This is probably headed down to at least the 800 and potentially even the bottom or even lower here. So do keep in mind this is the dollar yen, which tends to be a safe haven currency. And when the markets get a little volatile and rough, this thing tends to fall. So if the Dow Jones, let me bring this up real quick. If the Dow Jones does begin to pull back, that dollar yen is probably going to get smoked a little bit. So we are seeing some downside today. It looks like it's trying to break down here. And again, we are headed for, let me draw this on here. This is the Dow Jones. We are kind of headed for this line again right here. What's holding this market up is we've pushed down here, we've pushed here again, and again here, and it looks like we're trying to move down again. We have this nice little trend line, which is near the coral on the weekly time frame. This is what is holding this market up. If this ever goes, that means we've closed below the lower band on the monthly time frame. The momentum is already pretty weak on this, but if we do close below this trend line right here, this could get pretty darn ugly pretty fast. So I'm definitely watching this in the weeks and months to come here. But until we get a close below this, it's hard for me to be too bearish. So definitely watching this, but I say all that because, again, the dollar yen is very much correlated with the stock market. So if the stock market gets smoked, this is probably getting smoked too. So do keep that in mind. But that's what I'm saying on the dollar yen. Again, the monthly time frame is pretty bearish looking right now in terms of momentum, and it appears the weekly is trying to turn. So please be very careful if you're trying to take long positions on this. In my opinion, it is much safer to take a short on this than it is to take a long on this at this point, because again, we just hit major resistance up here. And do remember, when you are coming into major resistances, that's when you get your big moves with no pullbacks, and that's when it becomes very dangerous to take lower time frame reversals. For example, maybe on the H1 or the H4, you say, hey, I think it's going to pop here, so let's go ahead and take a long. Meanwhile, you just hit major resistance on the daily or the higher time frames. And again, when you hit the major resistances up here, this is when this thing flies to the south and gets absolutely smoked with no pullback. We saw that recently on the pound dollar. So let me throw this one up here. A lot of people have been buying this and even the euro because they say, hey, it's got to pull back, but really it doesn't have to pull back. It doesn't have to do anything, and the market's always right. Again, this is something that I posted on my page as well a while back, and you can see this is doing exactly what we thought it would do. We had a move up into the coral, and again, the coral is major resistance. I drew my trend line about right there, so you can see this to me was a fake out right here, and again, we had to move up here, up into this level, and right here, brand new low, and now we're coming back into it. So this is major resistance, and anytime you hit a major resistance level on a higher time frame, that's when these things can typically that's when they typically do fall apart. So you have to be very, very careful on taking long. So I'm still not ready to take a long on this. Doesn't mean it won't reverse, but it's just too risky for my liking. But again, you can see we went from 144 all the way down to 132, which is how many pips? That's 1,200 pips. And there's been essentially no pullback along the way. So again, when you hit higher time frame resistances, that's when it becomes very, very deadly to try to take reversals on the way down. But a lot of new traders think this is just a pullback with the trend, when in fact we have hit major resistance on the weekly, or excuse me, on the monthly time frame. So please be careful out there. The markets are very well, they're coming into a lot of major levels on a lot of currency pairs, and that's when you get your big, big moves. So you have to be very cautious and very careful. So but as always, if you have any questions on this or anything else, please reach out to me. That's why I'm here. Have a great day.